I just want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I am Alderwoman Milele A. Coggs. I have both the pleasure and the honor of representing the 6th Automatic District in which the Brownsville Cultural and Entertainment District sits. We've done a lot over the last several years to help to build out Brownsville. There have been plenty of studies, a lot of engagement with residents. And as we get a lot of national attention now with the Holocaust Museum, with being named in the New York Times and a variety of other things, there are countless folks who are attracted to the Brownsville area. But we do want to stay true to the African-American cultural and entertainment district that we are. Today's meeting is about a specific area, our commercial corridor of Brownsville on North Avenue from King Drive to the highway to 7th Street, where we really want to think about the types of businesses that we would like to see in those areas and the types that we would not like to see. Part of the effort in this overlay is really to get a handle on what people want. In today's meeting, that's why we're engaging folks and engaging the public, because we also want to hear from you about what you would like to see in that commercial corridor in Brownsville. More will be explained shortly by folks from Department of City Development. But pretty simply, that's what it is. What do you want to see in that commercial corridor of Brownsville, and what do you hope not to see in that commercial corridor of Brownsville, all helping to support that African-American cultural and entertainment focus of this district. As we continue to build Brownsville, one of the things that I am proud of is the level of public engagement that we've had throughout the process. And this is just an additional layer. We are building a Brownsville that I believe we can all be proud of generations to come. Thank you.
Ray, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ray Hill. I get to serve as the executive director of the historic King Drive Business Improvement District. And of course, the BID's mission is to attract, retain, and sustain properties and businesses in the King Drive area. And through our recent boundary expansion, we've had the opportunity to capture a great portion of the Brownsville district. And so part of our perspective is to be in alignment, as Alderwoman Coggs stated, with the specific intention to move forward with specific types of uses and design. And of course, using what we've already have, which are some of the area plans that have historically existed that others have had the opportunity to participate in, but to maintain the specific ethos that the Brownsville district has. So glad that you all are joining us today, and I hope that you all participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I'll introduce myself next. Sam Leichling. I'm the City Planning Manager for the Department of City Development. Been working for the last multiple years with many of you on different Brownsville-related planning efforts, and really pleased to be able to be here today. And that Alderwoman Coggs has, initiated this project and asked our department to kind of take things to the next level as far as all of the planning that's been done over the years in Brownsville, and translate that into actual development regulations that will take Brownsville development to the next phase that all of you have been seeing happening with your own eyes, and all the new interest, and just really making sure that we at the Department of City Development have developed a zoning framework that helps those goals get achieved. And that's the goal of today's meeting. We'll talk more about that, what that means, the kind of input we're looking from you all on. We have a short presentation to just kind of set the stage for what actually is a zoning overlay and what is all the foundation that's already been laid. But most of the meeting today will be to hear from you. Before we launch into just the presentation, to give a little background, we have a kind of just an initial polling question that will help us, will help all of us kind of see who's in attendance, who's in the room, as we make sure that we really are casting a wide net to make sure we get information about who's giving input today. So you should see a poll on your screen if you're participating in Zoom. If everyone could just let us know, what's your connection to Brownsville? Are you a business owner or employee in the area, a resident of the nearby neighborhoods, interested in starting a business, or just, joining because you want to learn more, which is great too. And I'm not sure if all of you are seeing the results pop up, but it does look like that the majority of people here, close to 2/3, are residents of the neighborhoods next to Brownsville. And that's really great. And we want to thank, we have a whole team at DCD who worked with the Alderwoman's office and Ray to try to get the word out about this meeting. And I'm glad that we were able to get pretty strong participation. It looks like we have about 2/3 of you checked that you live near Brownsville. About 1/3 of you are business owners or employees. And then a small group who's also just interested or again, none of the above. So great. It looks like we have really great participation. I already am seeing some questions in the chat about the boundaries. We're going to, I will show a map in one moment, kind of talking about the area we're focusing on today. First, I want to just give some context again for why we're here. And what is a zoning overlay? You've all probably heard of zoning, and zoning just very generally is the rules that apply to what you can and can't do on your property. That's things like what uses can be there, how tall a building can be, any kind of design requirements. And there's already zoning in place for much of the Bronzeville commercial district, which is the area along North Avenue between the freeway and King Drive. What the zoning overlay that we're all going to develop together over the next few months will allow is it will set specific additional rules that are tailored specifically to the goals of Brownsville. An overlay is something that we do in areas of the city where there's unique issues or unique situations or unique goals, and it allows residents and business owners and policymakers to acknowledge that certain areas of the city have very unique opportunities and very unique characteristics, and that there might be a need for a particular customized zoning that will set customized rules for that area. And of course, when you look at the criteria we would use for deciding, what types of areas an overlay might be appropriate, something as important to the city and to the 6th Aldermanic District as the Brownsville Cultural and Entertainment District, how unique it is, the history, the effort. It's certainly, we believe, we agree with Alderwoman Coggs, does justify a custom zoning overlay that will set specific rules that are applicable to Brownsville. And again, the why, big picture, we're always going to go back to the 15 years worth of work that's done to creating the Brownsville Cultural and Entertainment District and wanting to make sure that the zoning standards really facilitate that. We had a specific question about the boundary. You should see it, the map on the screen in front of you shows the boundary of the area that we're looking at developing this overlay for. Now, I know different people use different definitions of Brownsville, but in working with Alderwoman Coggs late last year and the bid in creating a temporary overlay that's in place right now, which is called the Brownsville Interim Study Overlay, that was placed over the overlay, over the Brownsville district to allow this time for community business owners and residents to come together and form a new set of zoning requirements that would be applicable to this area. This is the area that we're likely going to consider the overlay for, but there can be small tweaks here or there depending on feedback we get. But generally, it's all of the commercially zoned businesses that touch North Avenue, that front onto North Avenue, that kind of core part of the Brownsville Cultural and Entertainment District between King Drive and the freeway. And you can see it goes a little bit to the east of King Drive there because of the properties that touch onto the corner of King Drive and North Avenue, which has always been kind of that intersection of King and North has always been viewed as one of the centerpieces to the Brownsville district. So any property that touches that corner, or is along North Avenue west of the freeway, that's what we're including. What's the process look like to develop an overlay? As I mentioned last fall, the Common Council created an interim study overlay. That's a temporary zoning district that basically says, given some of the unique issues at play and the fact that there's a lot of activity and proposals happening in Brownsville and wanting to give stakeholders time to develop this overlay district, there's an interim overlay in place. And what that says is during the period the interim overlay is in place, any new proposal has to go to our Board of Zoning Appeals. So right now there's already an extra layer of protection in place on that zone, on the Brownsville corridor, that says any new development does require a custom review by the Board of Zoning Appeals. And that gives the city time, and we hope to do this over the next 6 or so months, to develop a longer term set of standards. So instead of every project having to get a custom review, there's a set of expectations in place for developers around what uses and designs are expected in Brownsville. We have created a small project advisory team that the bid helped us create and that Ray is helping facilitate, which we're using to kind of help develop some of these ideas. And a lot of what you're going to see today was vetted by them and informed by some early input we got from a few business owners and community stakeholders. And now we want to give the larger general public the chance to weigh in. And we hope to do that. We probably will have 2 meetings on this topic, one today and one in the next few months, where we come back and also today we're going to talk mostly about uses. Alderwoman Coggs said we want to focus on what uses are and aren't appropriate in Brownsville. And we'll also talk about design likely at a later meeting. And then we'll come back with a final set of overlay proposals, which will then go in front of our Common Council, the Brownsville Advisory Committee, the City Plan Commission, and the public will also get a chance to weigh in at that point. But we do hope to, again, wrap this up by early fall. As Alderwoman Coggs mentioned, we aren't starting from scratch. You know, there's been now close to over 15 years worth of work and effort, and many of you have been involved in that effort that has led to where Brownsville is today. There was the redevelopment plan back in 2005, which kind of set the stage for the city acquiring some of the land on North Avenue to facilitate the future arts and culture or cultural entertainment district. That redevelopment plan talked about specific uses that should and shouldn't be encouraged in Bronzeville. Those standards still apply on land the city is selling, but they don't necessarily apply to privately owned properties, which is why, again, we want to go through this process of developing an overlay to make sure that the rules and expectations are set for the long term in Bronzeville, even beyond the time that the city is sold property, so that 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, new development, new uses all continue to advance the goals of the Bronzeville Culture Entertainment District. In 2009, there was additional planning for Bronzeville through the Northeast Side Plan. That's one of the city's official land use planning documents. It again talked about the needs and the importance of building a cultural entertainment district in Bronzeville with mixed use development, improved streetscaping, cultural entertainment uses. You've seen some of those things implemented over the years, whether it's through streetscaping, some of the events that have been happening in Bronzeville, Brownsville Week, things like that. Then in 2013, there was a charrette. I know from some of the names on this call that a few of you were involved with that charrette that looked at some of the key sites in the Brownsville area and asked community members, what do you want to see here? And then working with teams of architects, coming up with actual conceptual development proposals for those sites. Then more recently in 2018, we worked with the King Drive bid and others. Halyard Park Neighborhood Association participated, Harambe. West Care was involved in this effort to develop a transit-oriented development planning study that looked at the future of King Drive and Bronzeville and how could additional development, additional improvement in the streetscaping, additional investment in the public streets create new development that would support the ongoing development of the culture and entertainment district. We had significant community engagement. Multiple planners from DCD were involved in that. A couple of us are on the call today. Again, I know many of you are involved. Some of the key recommendations that emerged from that were, again, talking about developing a mix of uses along North Avenue, a variety of housing types, multi-story development that had maybe housing upstairs or office uses upstairs, but first floor uses that really reinforced the Brownsville arts and culture goals. And that plan was adopted back in 2018. There was significant design work to talk about what should the long-term image of Brownsville be, including with significant input from artists who participated in an artist focus group that was occurred during that project. So all of that planning informed the goals that I think bring us to where we are today. The things we've heard consistently are people want to see the mix of uses expanded with retail, restaurants, culture and entertainment uses on the first floor that really advance that Brownsville culture and entertainment goals. There's a specific focus on wanting to create space for artists to live and work, provide a affordable commercial space and a mix of mixed income housing and rent and mixed income and affordable housing to ensure a range of housing options. Designs, we want to preserve historic architecture, but also support new development that will complement that and be pedestrian oriented that includes art whenever possible. The current zoning that's in place now is the city's local business 2 zoning. That's the zoning that's in place in a lot of the city's commercial corridors. It supports a lot of the uses we've heard from people they want to see. It supports things like multifamily housing, office, retail, artist studio, but it also allows a number of uses that we've heard from many of you and from the Alderwoman and from bid representatives may not be 100% consistent with the goals of the Brownsville Culture Entertainment District. So that's kind of brought us to where we are today about the need to create an overlay. So we want to make sure that the allowable uses and design standards for Brownsville do truly reflect the goals of the community and also advance the goals of creating this arts and cultural, a destination basically that's pretty unique in the country. Whether it's, representatives of BID, Alderwoman Coggs, we continue to hear about wanting, it's the city's goal to have the best King Drive in the nation. And I think that extends to also wanting to have a Brownsville district that supports that and is aligned with this truly being both a city, regional, and national destination for African-American arts and culture. And we want to make sure that the overlay facilitates that. So I'm going to pause now. We talked a lot about what an overlay is, the background. I want to open it up to just questions. If people have any questions about process or, anything about overlays they want to put in the chat. The next phase is we're going to talk more specifically about some of the things we've heard around what should or shouldn't be happening from a use standpoint within Brownsville, and then turn it up, break out into this groups to get input from each of you. But I do want to pause here. This is a chance for people to ask questions in the chat, or I guess if you prefer, I think we can also do a couple of, if you want to raise hands, we can also call on one or two people too. One of the questions was, will educational uses be allowed in the LB2 zoning? That's a great question. Currently, many types of educational uses are allowed in the existing zoning. When we break out and start talking about the specific recommendations of Brownsville, I think you'll hear that we believe that if there are educational uses that facilitate and advance arts and culture goals, those could be appropriate, but they may need some standards put on them. And that's a good topic for discussion when that's a specific topic we do want to hear from people on. So I guess, Carla, that's an open question. And that's one we want to hear from people about. So I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. I'm going to now turn it over to my colleague, Amy Oath. Amy's one of the planners who's been working on this project. There's a number of us from DCD Planning on the phone or on the call today. A few of us will help facilitate some of the discussion later in the meeting. But for now, I'll just, Amy, I'll turn it over to you to set up the group discussion for a few minutes.
Oh, I just saw one more question come in. Will historical design input be involved in the overlay? Yes, we're focusing on use today. Our next outreach will include more of the design component. If there is time today, we can talk a little bit about that in small groups. But the focus today is really to ground truth the use is that I'm about to go over. So if anybody's on Facebook, we will be talking about these more in depth after I run through them in small groups. So you're welcome to come over to Zoom and join us for that.
And Anthony, I see you put a second question in too about comparing it to Mitchell Street on the south side. There are some unique things at play on Mitchell, including the local historic designation, I believe. So that is a slightly different scenario. Right now, Bronzeville is not, this stretch of King Drive is not designated locally historic. So there's not that same level of historic preservation control. And that's something, again, if people want to give input on that one way or the other, that's something we could certainly talk about when we break out into the small groups also.
You can advance the slide. All right, so because we're looking really to ground truth everything that we've heard so far, taking all the plans that Sam went over and the input received to date. And we've come up with a set of recommendations, and we're going to pull everybody into three smaller groups to really discuss these a little bit more in depth. But one of the main ones is retail recommendations. And this is to look at continuing to permit some types of retail, but then prohibiting others. Most of the properties within the overlay are zoned local business, and really all retail uses are allowed within local business. So what we found, it's a very, very long list of retails types, and not all of them do support the development goals. So we're looking at things like apparel and accessories and artwork, household goods, antiques, toys, food and beverages, things that support the district goals or do things to activate and create a vibrant corridor. And then we're also recommending that chain retailers or larger square feet footprints would only be permitted if they go through a public hearing and found to support the Brownsville district goals. Then looking at a larger list of prohibited retail uses, this is more specific, and we'll go into this within the discussion. but auto parts stores, furniture and floor covering, hardware stores, major appliance stores, pharmaceutical, tobacco products, liquor, telephone stores that really aren't in line with the district goals. And we do look for your input on that. And then the next one is first floor use limitations. So these uses are employers, local resources, and housing that can help bring people to the area, but they're not really generating that foot traffic or providing cultural and entertainment amenities. So we're recommending permitting these uses, but just not on the first floor of buildings. And then there's a whole bunch of non-retail uses that are currently allowed within LB2 zoning, but we're thinking that these should be prohibited uses because they either don't generate foot traffic and or they don't further those goals of the district. And then there are quite a few special uses within our zoning code. These uses would have to seek approval for the Board of Zoning Appeals, and we're recommending quite a few of these are just prohibited uses within the Brownsville overlay. So that would be auto uses like vehicle sales and repair, or industrial type uses such as storage, convenient cash establishments, so payday, cash for gold pawn stores, and medical and social service facilities. All right, and now we're going to break up into small groups. So Kevin is going to randomly assign us to breakout rooms, and he will be in the main room to help anybody that gets stuck. And Sam, Monica, or I will be your facilitator, and we'll talk through these a little bit more in depth. All right, Kevin, does it look like we have everybody back yet?
I think so. The rooms are now closed.
All right, thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. We have a website set up, so I encourage any of you to kind of stay tuned, look at that. It has some bunch of background information. I'll be posting the recording from tonight's meeting. My contact information is here as things move forward. As well, there is a survey on the website that's very similar to what we talked about tonight. So you don't have to answer it if you feel like you gave all your input, but if you have further thoughts and would like to answer the survey, you don't have to answer every question too. There's a general comment form as well in there. And we definitely encourage you to spread the word and encourage people to go look at the website that couldn't be here tonight. Sam, that hyperlink should work if you want to press it. Oh, I guess not.
I will do that. As you are closing it out, I'll get it up on the screen so people can see what it looks like.
Okay. And there's a.
I think Alderwoman Coggs joined too, and if she wants to close us out, I'll have the website up while you're giving kind of final next steps, what to look for next, and any other closing comments.
Good.
Thank you, Sam and Amy, and thank you to all of you who joined us tonight and gave your input. And there will be additional opportunities to give input, so please stay tuned for those meetings and bring a neighbor with you, bring an interested party with you to have input. Years ago, this neighborhood, this district was promised a full service grocery store with fresh fruits and vegetables. Somewhere midstream, it changed to a Dollar Tree. I joined with neighbors from Harambe, Howyer Park, and Brewers Hill to demand, what we were promised in the first place. By right, that Dollar Tree could have opened, and many of us remember the countdown that was in the window, the stock shelves and employees that were working in there. But together, the neighbors from all the neighborhoods, along with me, were able to help working with the city, Department of City Development, to make sure that that Dollar Tree did not open, and fought for and ultimately got the fresh fruits and vegetables, full service grocery store that we wanted to see. And we're thankful for peace to now be there. More recently, in the last year, I got calls about a smoke shop, or the potential for other uses in this same corridor. It dawned on me that instead of us having to fight piece by piece, parcel by parcel, building by building for what those uses should be or what they should look like, that maybe there is a broader planning that we could do to help ensure that the commercial corridor of Brownsville is what the majority of the neighbors and stakeholders would like to see. So this is part of that process. So I thank each of you for participating in this process. And my sincere hope is that when we're done with this all, that there is a set process that helps to encourage the types of development we want to see, and that discourages and in some cases prevents the types of uses and zoning that we don't want to see in the commercial corridor of Brownsville. So again, thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Alderwoman Coggs. Sam has pulled up the website, so tomorrow morning, this website should be live and it'll pop up and you're welcome to go back and take a look. Again, the questions are very, very similar to what you saw tonight, but there is a general comment box if you think of other things, or you can email me as well. The website has the timeline and a bunch of background information, so feel free to visit, and you will see links for future meeting information in the coming months as well. All right, thank you all.